So if it isn't obvious by this intro, the title, the thumbnail, I've spent the last month off and on playing Blue Protocol Star Resonance. And I can pretty definitively say, man, is this game so much better than the original. All right, so if it hasn't completely obvious to you guys by now, this was the secret project that I was working on. Shout out to the Blue Protocol Star Resonance team for shooting your boy an invitation to the creator early access server. So just as a heads up, this is all the footage you're going to see, all the videos you're going to see over the course of the next week. Basically unless I specifically say it's closed beta test, basically all of this is going to be coming from the closed creator NDA server. So essentially, I have been pouring an insane amount of time into Star Resonance, and this game is like the Realm Reborn of Blue Protocol. And like when I say basically like it feels like a Realm Reborn situation, it quite literally feels like a Realm Reborn situation. Like it is so much better than the original in so many ways. It fixes a lot of really annoying things that the original did. And in this video, I'm going to talk with you guys about basically just my raw thoughts on pretty much everything from story to mechanics to game design to class design to monetization, everything when it comes down to Star Resonance. Now, I will say at the time this video goes live, I will be streaming the closed beta test of Star Resonance over on the YouTube channel as well as on the Twitch channel. So keep an eye out for that after you watch this video. If you want to get my thoughts, or hey, feel free to pause this and head over there, hang out there, and then at the end of the day, come back here and watch the video then. It's up to you. Either way. So to start things off, I want to say, like, it is insane how much like this game got rid of the archaic, annoying, checklisty variations of how the previous Blue Protocol worked. Like I didn't hate the previous Blue Protocol, like it was still fun, but like there were just ways the game worked that just weren't very intuitive. Like I would see someone complain about it and I really couldn't be mad at them for that complaint because they were absolutely correct. It was a lot of checklisty stuff. It was a lot of running around and killing the same mob over and over again for random drops, so on and so forth, grinding a specific camp for 15, 30 minutes, an hour, blah 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 blah. Like a lot of that stuff was very tied to everything you did, and it was really annoying. Star Resonance takes a more modern gaming approach without really getting rid of that actiony sort of like current generation MMO feel. If you're not a fan of current generation MMOs, totally understandable. It's not for everyone at the moment. Old school MMOs still have that luster that I really enjoy, but it just wouldn't fit. At least I don't think it would fit in this style of game overall. So I'm going to talk about just the individual things. I'm going to start with the story. The story for the game itself, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but I will say it starts out kind of slow. As I would expect most stories to start. Like there are some that can come out the gate swinging pretty heavily, and those are always a fun time, but they have to really keep the ampage going, and there's going to be a low point during that story, so not every story is built to really go that route. This one starts a bit slow, and towards the latter half of the story, it ramps up pretty ridiculously to some pretty cool stuff. Now, it's a lot of, how can I put this? It's a lot of we're a part of things, but it sometimes feels like we didn't have to consistently be there the entire time. Like we're kind of along for the ride in some cases, which does feel kind of bad. But ultimately, like the entire story overall, like coming towards the climax of that storyline and everything else that's happening in between it, it does feel like things kind of do make sense and kind of come to shape. So overall, if I had to give it like a letter or like a number grade or something like that, it'd be like a 6 out of 10 to start with, moving towards like a 7 or 8 out of 10 when it's basically finished. I'm going to talk about this along with the story because it is kind of like the elephant in the room to address. They do time gating in Star Resonance. Now, I know for some people that's like immediately a turnoff for them, but just hang on for me for just a moment because literally everyone who has picked up this game and been like, oh, things are time gated, I don't like this, by the time they have gotten through everything, they pretty much understand why the time gate even exists and realistically feel like it's kind of revolutionized time gating when it comes down to games like this. Now, I will say that feels a little bit glazy, as in like, I feel like people are kind of going over the top with it. I think overall, as a game, Blue Protocol has done a great job of giving you so much other things that you can do to like progress your account and your character and everything, that the time gating of the story isn't so much of a time gate of the story as it is as like a barrier to make you go do other things, but not a hard barrier that you have to. So realistically speaking, you could just do the story and then log out for the day if you absolutely want to, come back the next day, do more of the story, then log out, and do that over and over again until you get through the entire story, right? That's a thing you can absolutely do. However, there are so many other things for you to work on in between that will progress your account. Things like your life skilling. I know that's like, oh, well, why would I care about life skilling? Life skilling is a pretty big part of Blue Protocol Star Resonance. You're able to craft a lot of really, really useful stuff. You also have the ability to interact with the market board, which is going to be very, very helpful for you. You have things like fishing, cooking, gem crafting, mining, all those different things that all kind of mix in together for like food, potions, crafting gear eventually, crafting items that you can use for upgrade materials. All these things are very, very helpful and very useful. Also turning in materials for different individual vendors, exchanges, so on and so forth. So there's like a lot of different things that you can go into if you're looking to progress your account and really get the most out of the game itself. You absolutely can. However, you are not absolutely required to. It's just how much you put into it is how much you're going to get out of it ultimately. The other thing to address is going to be the monetization. Now, with free-to-play games, monetization is usually a pretty hot topic. It's a conversation topic that is important for a lot of people. So I don't like to sugarcoat when I talk about monetization because I feel like it causes more damage than it actually helps. So before I talk about, do I feel like Blue Protocol is pay to win? It's important to understand my barometer for pay to win, what I'm talking about when I refer to these things, and how I look at these, like basically just my perspective on it, right? Everyone has a different perspective. It's important to understand your own perspective of it and draw your own lines. Just because someone else doesn't think this is that big of a deal, but you do, it's totally reasonable for you to think, look at it and be like, you know what, that's too much for me. I'm gonna bow out. Don't let anyone else decide those things for you, but understand, like I said, it's a barometer. People have different levels of acceptance. For me personally, I've watched too many good games go down in flames by not really setting proper standards and barriers and having good relationships between what should be paid for versus what needs to be accessible in a reasonable amount of time. So let's talk about this whole pay to win thing first, and then we're going to go on to the next portion of it. So for me, pay to win refers to any attempt you have putting money into the game, allowing you to then take out power in any way, shape, or form, whether it be that you get a currency that you can then use to purchase something that will allow you to get more of a specific currency to get ahead of someone else, whether it be an item you can then sell for just general currency that you can then use to power up your character. For example, if we were to look at something like PSO2, that game is absolutely pay to win. You can't really say otherwise because I can take money, I can put it into scratches, I can get things out of it, but I can then take that money, I can use that money to then buy some of the best gear in the entire game. And while it won't directly give me all the power, it will allow me to get ahead faster. That is my barometer for pay to win in any way, shape, or form. Calling it pay to progress, calling it pay to not deal with inconveniences, I feel like just sugarcoats it for a lot of people, and it really just kind of dulls the senses, and it causes more harm than it does like actually help. So just so you guys are aware, I want it to be very, very transparent when we talk about this. So how does the monetization in Blue Protocol work specifically? Well, I'm actually gonna go ahead and bring this up here. I think I can see it in inventory. So you have 4 different amounts of currencies. Now this is probably gonna seem really complicated at first, but it's actually extraordinarily straightforward. Luno is just money. There's 2 types of Luno. There's bound Luno and there's unbound Luno. Bound Luno is for anything specific to you. Can't be used to purchase anything that you would get from another player. cannot be used to get anything else outside of just upgrading you as a character. It's bound to you specifically. Unbound Luno, the opposite, can be used to purchase things off the market, for trading and things of that sort, and can also be used to purchase our bound premium currency, that being Rose Orbs. Rose Orbs come in two flavors, bound and unbound. Unbound is the purchased premium currency, can only be acquired from very, very, very specialized events is what I'm told. I haven't seen them. Want to be very, very straightforward about that. I have not seen them, so can't confirm anything for you guys. In very rare circumstances, unbound Rose Orbs are provided. And otherwise, you have to spend basically we put it's credit card only. Essentially, you have to spend money to get unbound Rose Orbs. And then you have bound Rose Orbs. Bound Rose Orbs are essentially the freemium currency. This can be earned in game. It comes from quests, comes from achievements, comes from different shop exchanges, all different kinds of things, right? This is the unbound, or this is the bound currency Rose Orb specific to you. Now you can take Luno, so this unbound version of Luno, and it can be used to purchase bound Rose Orbs. Now, the way this works, and this is actually very similar to another game that I play called Crystal of Atlan, is players who have unbound Rose Orbs can sell their unbound Rose Orbs for unbound Luno. The players who then purchase those Rose Orbs will receive back bound Rose Orbs, and they will be giving out unbound Luno. So this is a way that essentially whales can interact with the free-to-play players, so that way the free-to-play players have an option to get even more of the freemium currency, while the whales are able to get more currency in general to then push their gear forward, whether it's they're buying something off the market, whether it's they are spending more money, whatever it happens to be, right? Like they're able to get more of that currency. Now, you can also take unbound Rose Orbs, and they can become bound Rose Orbs at a 1-to-1 ratio. You can also take unbound Luno and make it bound Luno. I think it's 1-to-1 ratio, right? Yeah, at a 1-to-1 ratio. So the currencies within each other can actually be moved over from unbound to bound. That is a thing that can be done. So if you need more bound Rose Orbs, you can purchase unbound Rose Orbs and move them over to bound Rose Orbs. That's a thing you are able to do. So anything you can purchase with unbound Rose Orbs technically can be bought with money by moving your bound Rose Orbs to unbound, which is why I said flat out that yes, it is a to win. Is it a big deal? Not really. And we're going to talk about that as well. This doesn't matter so much in a perfect world. Now, on the side of Crystal of Atlan, they've mostly done this correct. However, this game still needs to kind of tweak this, I personally believe. There are individual shops. Actually, if I do something like show you guys, let's say the wardrobe. I believe it's... No, not the membership. Okay, yeah, the store, right? So if we go to the store, we have things that are cost bound Rose Orbs, and we have things that cost unbound Rose Orbs. Now, I don't know why we have items that specifically cost bound Rose Orbs over unbound Rose Orbs. I think it's a bit silly. I honestly would prefer if everything just cost bound Rose Orbs, make this very simple and straightforward. Crystal of Atlan already does this with their Prismatium and Opals. Basically, they do the exact same thing. Their Opals are basically their unbound Rose Orbs. Their Prismatium is their bound Rose Orbs. And the only thing you can purchase with Opals that you cannot buy with Prismatium at all is more currency. So if they were to take something like the unbound Rose Orbs and make it so that's the only thing you can buy with those that you cannot purchase with bound Rose Orbs is Luno, I feel like that'd be a much better system overall, but that is not the current system we have. However, they are open to change, so maybe if that's some feedback we provide to the devs, we might see that in the near future. But that's more or less the monetization. When it comes down to what these things are used for, the major thing here is the unbound Rose Orbs are the only things that can be used for these gachas. Unbound Rose Orbs, or of course the Meowlix the wish coins here. So you have to use either these wish coins, which you can exchange for the wish coins and things like that. You can shows you where you can get them through. So you get them to season pass, or the orb store. The orb store does have a thing you can purchase, but it is, of course, Unbound Rose Orbs. So just keep that in mind. You can't get everything that you want from this with Unbound Rose Orbs, which with Crystal of Atlan, you'd be able to. So I kind of hope they change this. I feel like it's kind of silly for it to be like this, but it is just fashion, and this fashion can be purchased off of the trading center is what I'm told. However, I personally haven't experienced this as our trading center with the stuff isn't here, right? So we can't, yeah, you can see it shows at 1 here. It doesn't tell us what the prices are, so I can only assume that it costs, I guess, like Unbound. Maybe it's Luno, I don't know 100%. We'll have to see whenever it comes out. But I'm told on the CN side that this is something that is done as well, so that is an option that's available there for fashion. I would like to see that be Unbound Rose Orbs, or Bound Rose Orbs, to be honest, but like I said, teachers their own. The only thing that interacts with power specifically, I would actually need to go over there to show you guys, so give me just one moment. It's over here in the entertainment district. So if we go ahead and talk to Mason, we have the Will Wish. The Will Wish is the Imagine Wish, the Battle Imagine Wish. And the Battle Imagines are very powerful. Not the ones on the actual banner right now, actually, but there are Battle Imagines that are extraordinarily powerful, specifically the Mook Chief and, at least for my spec, the Phantom Arachnocrab. So these Imagines are really, really strong, and you're able to invest Bound Rose Orbs to pull more Imagines. Of course, the more you pull, the more Imagines you can go ahead and make quickly. Granted, it's not that you can't get them anywhere else. You can also get them from hunting at an RNG. So you have a chance to get them once you fight the actual bosses as a drop. So there isn't a way to get a hold of them. And of course, Bound Rose Orbs, you do get them over time. So you're able to farm out your Bound Rose Orbs with things like chests and achievements and all that good stuff. But someone can just swipe a credit card, turn unbounds into bounds, and get ahead because of that. So that's probably the closest thing to like really pay to win in the game itself. And I will say, Imagines at like tier 5 or like tier 6 or basically like what is it, like C6 DPS and like Genshin. Essentially, they are extraordinarily powerful comparatively to their tier 0 versions. Granted, is it as crazy as Genshin? No, Genshin's like way more over the top, but this is going to give you a pretty sizable difference. I'll give a quick example. If we were to look at something like the Mook Chief, actually we'll look at the Phantom because I have him at like tier 3. We'll look at something like the Phantom Arachnocrab. Starts at 10% mastery and 800 mastery increase for passive. If I were to get this thing to tier 5, it is now 20% mastery and 2000 mastery as a passive. My Mook Chief, I believe, started at 10%, and it was like, I want to say a 20% crit damage increase. And then by the time it hits 5, it's going to be a 25% and a 40% crit damage increase. So as you can see, it's a pretty sizable amount of damage increase. So this is probably the closest thing that they have currently to like really pay to win that I could see someone be like, you know what, I don't want to interact with that. And that's totally reasonable, and that is totally understandable. But I think it's that big of a deal? Not really, no. I think over time, this is going to kind of balance out between being able to farm and purchase the Imagines off of the market board, as well as the ability for you to eventually get lucky or get enough Bound Rose Orbs to make your pulls and get your pity and so on and so forth, right? So I think it's going to eventually be fine. But if you're someone who like likes to go for the tip top of rankings, you want to be the absolute best, you want to make sure that you are ahead of everyone else, unless you have the wallet to also support that, you're going to need the skills. Let's not sugarcoat this. You also have to be good. You can't just wallet your way to victory. You also have to be good, because someone who is terrible and who is hyper geared is still actually can be outperformed by someone who actually knows what they're doing and is moderately geared. So depending upon the class, of course, but keep that in mind. Like, unless you're one of those people, you're going to be fine. Most people are just going to get tier 0 Imagines and they'll be perfectly fine. Maybe they'll get lucky and they'll happen to get a drop. So they'll go to tier 1 or tier 2 or whatever it happens to be. When new Imagines come out, we don't know how often that's going to happen. That's going to have to be something that we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The only issue that I don't see that being a big problem right now is because, perfectly honest, the Imagines that are on the Will Wish, these are all ass. Like, it's like having 4 premium Imagines, and you rather get the Imagines that are like the equivalent of the standard Imagines, because they're just straight better. So like, these are pretty terrible. Like, there's something to be said about Tina, and then that's really about it. I mean, you could argue Arona as well, but like I said, they're not very great. But yeah, that's kind of like from the pay to win perspective of things and my thought process from there. All right, so moving on from there, I wanted to talk about something that tends to be a hot topic, not a hot topic, I guess, but something that people tend to ask about a lot, which is like, are there things to do at Endgame? What's the Endgame like? So on and so forth. And the short answer is yes, there's a lot, but it depends realistically on how important your progression is to you as an individual player, what you enjoy doing, so on and so forth. There are social events. There are, of course, daily dungeons. There are daily commissions out in the world. You have the entire world to explore, though it does feel kind of empty without specific events. There are chests to grab. There are monsters to fight, which fighting overworld monsters. There's also an entire monster compendium that killing specific numbers of monsters is also going to get you extra, bound rose orbs. So that's also part of it as well, including elite mobs, as well as boss mobs, and then overworld bosses. There are raids that are coming out. There's a couple of these things. So there are master mode dungeons, which are essentially mythic plus dungeons that have their own season where they're affixes, and they get stronger. And I think they go up to like 25 or something crazy like that. I want to say there were only 5 on release, or like 5 levels on release, and it goes up to 25. And some of these dungeons are really difficult. I actually did a few of them with some of the other creators here, which I'll probably try to show some footage on screen right now. And we were getting absolutely mollywopped by one of the bosses. And like, while I'm so used to figuring out mechanics fairly quickly, it took people a couple of tries to even notice some of the mechanics existing in the first place, or how to deal with some of them. Things like, cleanses, general tether mechanics, crossing over mechanics, things like that. Like those things like are ingrained in my brain from raiding in Final Fantasy 14 so much that I just recognize them very quickly. Which I feel like some people are going to run into problems with if they're not used to this sort of thing. So like there's that. And then on top of that, it's M+, where there are other general mechanics where I'd randomly have a dot that would pop up on me. And if I moved during it, it basically was Pyretic from 14, where I just take a bunch of damage. And by a bunch of damage, I mean, it would tick me 3 times and I'd die instantly. So people were dying from like almost full HP to 0 and had no idea why. And that's just one of the options. There's a couple of dungeons that have different, Mythic Plus variants, essentially. There's a tower that you can, every week you basically push as far as you possibly can for rewards. There is what's the other one? It's timed, of course. There's essentially like a roguelike arena mode where you pick up buffs between each round and you go in for stronger fights and stronger bosses and stronger monsters to go as far as you possibly can. And get crazy buffs and end up with insane things like, 100 plus crit rate or something crazy like that. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to do that, but I've seen it over on CN, and that's stuff that we have the ability to go into as well. And that's just to name the things that we know of right now. We also know there are like major 20-man raids we haven't gotten a chance to do. There are daily raids that are available. There are guild hunts and guild raids that are also available. So there is quite a few things to get into the end game, and that's all combat related. If you're more of like a social person, there are social events where you go around and do races, where you go around and just dance in specific areas and hang out and do emotes and so on and so forth. The guilding situation is actually pretty awesome. The guild hall has a bunch of hangout places, has a place for you to test your damage on like dummies and things like that. So there's a lot of different types of content. And the thing about this is all like, Star Residence has been out for a month on the CN side of things, right? Like this is all the very beginning. This is all season 1, first season stuff. We don't have new classes yet. We don't have new anything else yet, right? Like they just got level 60 gear, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. So it's going to be quite a bit that's available over time. And this is just the start of what's going to be what we have to deal with. Of course, new seasons means new affixes, new dungeons eventually will be coming out, new story will come out with new levels, new chapters, new classes, so on and so forth. So if the question is there enough to do at Endgame? I'd argue there's plenty to do at Endgame. All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is the gearing system. It's not bad. Honestly, it's solid. Not too heavily RNG, but also not just free. There is actually some effort you have to put into properly statting and gearing and optimizing your character. You have your standard equipment, and you also have this thing called modules, which basically are like insignias from Lost Ark with less annoyances on how to build them. I'm gonna have a video where I go over the gearing process more in detail, but suffice to say that it's specific to each class, and it's not overly complicated, but it's enough that you kind of like, you know, feel like you're gaining power over time and you feel rewarded for putting in effort for actually gearing, which I feel like is very, very important when it comes to the overall process of any MMO. And you don't just start gearing at endgame. Because of the way the story is tiered, you hit certain breakpoints while you're leveling, that you do a bit of gearing in between, and the resources you spend on that gearing isn't fully wasted. So like you are going to do a bit of optimizing at lower levels around like 20, and then optimizing in like 30s and the 40s. And when you hit the 60s is like your big moment of like, all right, cool, now I'm going super ham, but like I'm 60 and I'm not going in there with like paper mache gear. Like I've been optimizing the entire way, and it's paced me to a point where it's actually worth doing. So that's really, really cool. I mentioned this is the last thing I was talking about, but I totally forgot one other thing. The catch-up system in this game is like the coolest thing I have ever experienced. They have just essentially so many reclaims and catch-up systems that if you miss something, like it's like overflow energy on crack from other games. Like I hadn't been doing all of my life skilling properly, and I went out to just start life skilling, and I just saw reclaim energy. Basically, essentially the reclamation points, there's a shop that you can purchase things with reclamation points if you have missed something, which helps you get caught back up to what the server and everyone else is at that point in time. So a lot of things are based on how long the server has been around, not how long your account has been around, meaning that if there is a gate that is put in place there, that gate is specifically based on how long the server has been up. So it's set to essentially kind of tier things out for when people are experiencing it on launch. But if you want to wait a little while and just go ham later on, you absolutely can. And catching back up to everyone else is totally reasonable to do. You're not feeling like you're left out. However, you might feel a bit overwhelmed with getting access to so many things at once, because that's one thing I absolutely did enjoy about the time gated of the story and some of the other things we're doing is it puts like emphasis and reason for you to look at other things in the game other than just blitz story run to end game. So may not be for everyone. I think it's actually a good thing because I experienced it without having that, and I'll be honest, I was so incredibly overwhelmed when I hit max level. I had no idea which direction to even look at. But had it been that it was something I looked at level 20 when I had less resources and less things to work on, and then again at level 40 or something like that, basically if a wall was put up in between at those moments, I would have spent more time looking at them and I would have felt so much more ready for when I hit max level. But that's a me personal thing. And that's pretty much it, man. I am looking forward to creating content. I've got like so many videos to edit right now. I'll basically be spending all day editing videos. Like I mentioned earlier, when this video goes live, I'll be live over on my Twitch channel as well as on YouTube, getting ready to play the closed beta test. And yeah, that's all I've got for you guys. If you watch all to the end, you're an absolute gamer. If you are excited for Blue Protocol Star Resonance, make sure to sub to the channel. We'll be releasing videos, guide videos, update videos, new class videos, whatever happens to come out. Also, this is like a little extra tidbit for the very end. While yes, I am playing Yaito / Stormblade, I want to play Striker, dual axe wielding guy. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, you know, it's not in this universe. It's not in this game. It's in the universe and it's in the game. There's an NPC that uses my class. I've seen him. He's an important NPC. I kind of gave away by saying he, but I'm not going to say any more. You'll see it. It flashes for just a second at a certain point of the story. And then later in the story, they just flat out show it. So I'll give you some time, Blue Protocol team. I'll give you some time. You have till the end of the year. Give me Striker. Anyway, do all the YouTube things. They help out a ton. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and keep up with more. As always, thank the channel members. You guys are fantastic, and I appreciate every single one of you. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care, my friends. Have a good CBT. Peace out.